Hi everyone, welcome to Web3 Voice by Zeeve. We talk about all things app chains, rollups, and DeFi, AI, gaming, and similar interests in industries, of course, like you all know. I am Karthik as well. Funnily, apparently, when I told the AMA today will be between Karthik Senthil and me, who's Karthik who works at Zeeve, our VP made a very funny joke. He asked me if the AMA will be called Karthik, calling Karthik. It was funny. So uh, without wasting a lot of time, today's discussion will be on the topic of smart money, smart machines, how rollups power stablecoins and on-chain AI. So our guest today is Mr. Karthik Senthil, who's building something very exciting at the moment. We'd love to know what he's building. He's a venture partner at Lattice Fund. He's a former dev at ZK Circle and Amazon. He has contributed heavily in building these ventures. Welcome to the Z3 Voice, Karthik. So, would you like to introduce yourself for our listeners?
No, I appreciate that, Karthik. Yeah, I actually haven't seen Karthik calling Karthik. I've been meaning to. I know the movie's probably at least like 10 or 15 years old at this point, but I've been meaning to see it at some point. So maybe it'll be another inspiration for me to see it. No, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, just a little bit about myself. I, like many people, I first got into crypto about hearing about Bitcoin. It's kind of, at least for some of the OGs or the older kind of part of the industry, it's kind of the gateway drug. I know different things have inspired people more recently. I first read the white paper like kind of in the late 2016, early 2017 timeframe. And I think for me as an engineer, what really stood out to me was this notion of guaranteed behavior. Like the fact that, you know, the consensus algorithm worked the way it worked. There would be emissions the way it was scheduled, and it was not impossible. Of course, you could have a fork and everything, but basically, you couldn't change the algorithm, right? You couldn't change the way it worked. There was this notion of kind of assured guarantees, which is so different from software, right? In fact, software is very much grounded on the opposite thesis that you can go iterate and change and fix bugs and do this, at a moment's notice. And it's actually been a key feature of software that people can ship stuff really quickly. If it's not working, just go fix it and redeploy, right? You don't have to get it right at the first time. So that's kind of what initially drew me to crypto. And of course, like through the 2017 bull market, when prices go up, it's kind of more interesting and fun to get into the space. Um, I was at Amazon at the time, leading engineering teams, and spent some time following crypto, but didn't get really deep back into it until 2020. And so just a little bit about kind of my story. I left Amazon in early 2021 to go be a founder full time in crypto. I was focused more initially on crypto education, and then eventually trying to build um, a decentralized version of like a GLG. And for those who aren't familiar with that, it's basically like a knowledge network. Um, Today you have all these companies like GLG and there's others around the world that basically curate experts, and then companies go pay them to have access to. They basically are like kind of an aggregation of knowledge. And so I wanted to see if there's a way we can invert that through crypto rails. Of course, so I did that for about a year. Obviously 2022 was a crazy time with all the different blowups and stuff. So yeah, it wasn't as fun to be a founder then. And I ended up winding that down that summer, which probably in retrospect was a good thing because ChatGPT came out like 6 months later. And then yeah, I've been a venture partner at Lattice since the fall of 2022. It's been awesome, just really going deep with the team on early stage deals, and I've done a bunch of stuff there. And then I spent about a year at Circle, leading engineering teams on a bunch of stablecoin stuff, which we can get into. And then over the past little bit under a year and a half, I was at ZK Sync as the leader for ZK Sync Era, RL2. So thought deeply about product strategy, ecosystem, founders, tech, kind of you name it. And obviously, the going to our TG and airdrop was definitely a once lifetime experience. So definitely have some stories from there. And then now I'm working on a new a fund focused on AI agents, with the thesis that crypto infra plays a really key role in helping agents scale their models, move money, and eventually access internet capital markets. So it's a little bit about myself, but I'll pause there for more questions.
Okay, sounds brilliant, Karthik. So you mentioned that you started your journey with Amazon and followed by Circle and then ZK Sync, right? So could you touch upon, I mean, before we start our journey, because ZK Sync is one of our protocol partners for Rollups, and we've been teaming with them for quite a few years now. So if you can just touch upon your role at ZK Sync and what you helped build at ZK Sync, and we can probably follow through with that question with a little bit of infra questions and rollup questions after that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, the ZK Sync team is amazing. And really what I led there was being the single threaded owner for ZK Sync Era, which is our canonical L2. So ZK Sync protocol is a couple different things. We obviously have our own L2, but really our end vision for ZK Sync is or the Elastic chain. And I keep saying R because I was working there. I left a couple months ago, but the end vision is Elastic network, right? Elastic chain. And so really what that is it's an interconnected network of blockchains. And they all use the same underlying ZK stack. And as a result of doing that, we're able to facilitate native interop because they can trustlessly interact with each other because using ZK proofs. So that's the end vision, but ZK Sync Era is the L2 that was launched on mainnet in early, like maybe spring of 2024. Or sorry, spring of 2023. That's right, spring of 2023. And so when I joined, it was about really thinking about what we want to do with the chain. And so obviously we went through TGE and airdrop, which was a really kind of watershed moment for the ecosystem, and obviously the token as well on Era. And then we spent a bunch of time thinking about really just it's obviously, I think one of the things that is a common theme around rollups is that being a general purpose rollup is really difficult. I think in today's kind of ecosystem, that was something that was very popular, when Arbitrum and Optimism first launched in 2019. But there's now a lot of different general purpose rollups, and it's very difficult to differentiate yourself to builders if you're just, by and large offering the same. Your block space isn't differentiated. And so we spent a lot of time thinking about what we want to do with Era. Is there a certain kind of domain or kind of set of builders we want to focus on? What did our tech uniquely enable? So we did a bunch of work there focused on that. And then so that was kind of what I led at ZK Sync.
Okay, that's brilliant, Karthik. So it's always fun to speak to somebody at ZK Sync, right? Because I have listened to Vasilis speak quite a few times on his YouTube videos, and you wouldn't want him to stop. So it's brilliant when he gets into the groove of talking about Era and Elastic Chain, which is, of course, changing rollups and the infra as we know it. So my first question to you, Karthik, is how do you see rollups fundamentally changing the infra layer of stablecoins and AI agents operating on chain? If you can just elaborate on that right.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two answers. The first is kind of the obvious answer, which is like, rollups by and large, like the design and the reason that they're invented, right, is that they can optimize for different things. And so most rollups are, faster, have much higher throughput than Ethereum mainnet L1, and they're much cheaper. So that's kind of like the obvious answer of, yeah, like if you are, whether you're a human user or an AI agent, you'll probably want to access a rollup if you want to do something on a blockchain versus Ethereum L1. I think what is going to be really interesting for rollups as they compete with some of the other block space that's out there that's not EVM based, right? So Solana, Sui, some of the other kind of blockchains that are kind of competing for the same kind of usage, is really around figuring out the type of use case that they can be designed for, and being a much more like user focused, right? So historically, blockchains have kind of been like, hey, and I'm painting a broad brush, so I know not every blockchain operates like this, but they've kind of been like, hey, we have this cool new blockchain. Like you should come use it. It can do a lot of things, but it's not very what I would say like, customer obsessed. Like it's one of the things that, was a big thing in Amazon. It's like you need to deeply understand who your user is, um, understand their pain points, and then go build a solution for those pain points. And typically, historically in crypto, it hasn't really, that mindset really hasn't been very pervasive, right? It's been mostly like, we're going to build this cool technology and then people will use it. And I think one advantage Rollups has, if done well, is they can find a use case. So, like, the Robinhood L2 that they will eventually build. I know right now they're on Arbitrum. They can begin to think about, okay, if we want to, support tokenized equities, what are the trade-offs do we need to make on scalability? Are there other specific features, whether it's KYC, on-ramps, connection to settlement layers, pricing? What are the things that we need to kind of go offer and build and modify to make this use case exceptional? Same thing for AI agents. AI agents are going to likely require other things that are going to be important for them. For example, um, I think AI agents will be different. There'll be some AI agents that'll be, purely off chain, and all they'll use for on chain is payments and value exchange. So I think that's like something that may need to be specifically supported. For some of the on chain agents, it's like, okay, well, how do you go get compute to do inference? Ideally, a roll up that offers that natively or makes that really simple for developers is going to be much more useful than someone who is like, hey, you need to kind of go figure that out on your own. If verifiability and the notion of having a TE is important to you, especially if you're doing on-chain inference, and that might be really important if you're doing things like AI-powered DeFi, where you need model inference as part of a DeFi protocol implementation or kind of risk assessment that's dynamic. You'll probably want to have some notion of TE, and so you want to kind of build that natively. So anyway, basically what I'm trying to convey is that the power of rollups is you can be more user obsessed and design your system for the use case you're trying to tackle.
Of course, brilliant. So that's the entire debate as of now, right? The L1 and L2 debate is quite prevalent, and it's been stronger today than any time else in the past. So my next question to you, Karthik, is what are the biggest limitations today for stablecoins when it comes to scalability and programmability that rollups are specifically solving, in your opinion?
Yeah, I would say the biggest limitation that I've seen today with kind of blockchains in general is confidentiality. The ability for a user or for a wallet or for whomever to send money to somebody else, especially as you get into kind of trading use cases like a Robinhood, if they want to do settlement, there's ways to kind of obfuscate that. But you want to ensure that these things are confidential to the user and to the company, and that they don't want all these things to be publicly available. And so I think things like rollups can solve this. To talk about zk Sync, zk Sync recently launched Prividium, and that's effectively a Validium which enables a blockchain to verify that the transactions had the right state transitions and that nothing funky happened, but it doesn't reveal the actual contents of the transactions, who sent to who, how much they send, etc. So this is a really good, a good example rather of a roll up. If they use a Providium, for example, if they use a ZK stack, of saying, hey, look, this is something that we want to enable, and we're making a trade-off of doing this because the use case that we want to tackle demands this. So I think confidentiality, at least for stablecoins, is one. The other one that I haven't seen tackled too much, but I think will need to be tackled, and maybe this is tackled more at the app layer than at the blockchain layer, is last mile. So stablecoins, when I was at Circle, right, the big challenge of stablecoin payments it hasn't been the fact that, it hasn't really been throughput or scale. I know that's kind of a convenient thing for people to talk about on crypto Twitter. It's really been around the fact that if you get a stablecoin payment, let's say you're a merchant, you're a person, like what do you do with that money? How do you actually take that money and take it off of crypto rails to, do something with? It's fine if I pay you in USDC and you want to then go YOLO into a meme coin or buy some NFT or something else, like that totally works. But for most people, they want to take that stable coin and then go buy something in the real world. And that last mile piece has been really challenging historically. And I think still continues to be a challenge, even for merchants, things like that. And so um, if there's and I think maybe this is what Plasma's trying to solve as well, but like if there's a roll up that decides to take more of a full stack approach, it says, hey, look, beyond confidentiality, we're also going to go partner with a bunch of last mile. I don't know. I'm not an expert in the space, but like last mile banks, last mile settlement centers, such that you can, once you have your money in your wallet, if you want to go ACH it to your bank at any location, any country, you can do that. Like that would be powerful for a lot of users to kind of create more of an end-to-end solution than like either making the app do that or something else. So I think those two things, like last confidentiality and last mile, are things that roll-ups can offer. Not because they're roll-ups, but because the people building these things can take a more specialized viewpoint on the infra that they're building.
Okay, brilliant. So, Karthik, can we touch upon AI agents a little bit here? So, with AI agents increasingly interacting with smart contracts autonomously, how do you think rollups help in ensuring these transactions are efficient, cheap, and of course, trust minimized?
Yeah, I would say that I'd say a couple things, right? I'd say number one, one of the things rollups are just good at in general is making sure that costs stay low. And so with AI agents, being able to use these rollups, like I think pricing is gonna be key. The where I think rollups can really help with AI agents is really around um, identity and onboarding. Um, you know, as agents mature, they'll need to think about, what kind of flavor are they? Are they going to be the flavor where they're kind of fully sovereign and someone creates a wallet for them, and then somehow this key is managed by them, and they have full control to the wallet. And in that scenario, you'll want to have probably some sort of like MPC sharded solution that, again, the rollup infrastructure should provide, such that the agent doesn't have to, that like never has access to the full key. Because we've seen with things like Phrasa, very quickly, I think what rollups can begin to think about is offering more the identity and kind of the identity layer for agents. So if an agent is fully sovereign, you don't want the agent to have access to the key, because as we've seen with things like Phrasa, these agents can be jailbroken. So you'll probably want to have some kind of MPC like solution where there's key sharding and there's a validator set that can kind of keep these keys protected. If the flavor of the agent is more like a companion, where it's like, hey, the agent has access to a user funds to go invest on their behalf, but there's some guardrails and limits on which funds, how much, things like that. You'll want to have some technology like account abstraction, smart accounts, that can enable these interactions in the more programmable space. So to me, where rollups can really help agents, in my view, again, it's really this theme I want to hammer home is you want to create differentiated infrastructure for the use case you're trying to solve. If you're trying to solve a AI agent use case, you should deeply understand what is the pain point that you're trying to solve for, and then build infra for that. Same on the stablecoin side. I think team is trying to go build infra first and then backing into use cases is just going to be really difficult today in crypto.
Absolutely, Karthik. So, my next question to you is, let me just jump right to it. So, as we know, rollups enable app-specific scaling. So, Could we see specialized rollups optimized purely for AI-native stablecoins or agent economies, in your opinion? What would you think it would look like?
Yeah, 100%. Like I think that is probably the end game. The end game is to have hyper specialized blockchains that are optimized for a specific thing, and like that's the best option for a blockchain. And there's a whole different debate on like, is that even the right path, or um, is the app who's basically building on top of this, should they actually vertically on the stack downwards and create the blockchain themselves versus a infra provider that's building a hyper specialized use case? That's a different debate, but 100% agree. I do think, I certainly think you'll see experiments on AI, AI kind of managed hedge fund or AI managed traders that people can LP into. Like I think that's, you've already seen examples of that. There's some good ones on base and a couple other places. So I think that you'll definitely see. AI native stable coins seems like that there'll be shots on goal. Or I'm more skeptical on that actually playing out, just because I don't think that a stable coin needs to be AI managed unless you're trying to optimize for yield. But I think you could do that at a different layer than kind of building in the protocol. What I do think you'll see is more like AI native DeFi, where today DeFi is, to some degree static, in that the risk parameters for LTV and for some of these AMMs sometimes are like just configured in a static config file, and then you have to have a governance vote to change that. I think things like that make sense for AI agents or AI models at the least to be able to modify those based on what the context that they're seeing. So 100% agree that you'll see that. And as we see more agents come on chain, it is inevitable that there'll be agent economies that proliferate, where agents will begin to think about paying each other, or that if they're fully sovereign, accessing capital markets where they decide to tokenize themselves and then do things with that money, like acquire human labor or invest in other things, etc.
Okay, brilliant. That sounds pretty promising, and hope that comes to fruition sooner than later. So, my last question for the session today, Karthik, is what's your long-term vision for on-chain AI and rollups? Do you see a world where AI agents are major economic actors transacting in stablecoins powered entirely by rollup native infra, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's a good question. I absolutely think that there is a world where AI agents are major economic actors on chain. My view on this is that there needs to be a good reason for agents to come on chain, and in my view, payments and capital markets isn't the right wedge. If you talk to most AI agent builders, like, there are payment solutions out there, like in kind of traditional quote unquote Web 2, that work perfectly fine for agents. And there are other ways to get money for capital markets, i.e., fundraising, i.e., getting access to liquidity, that are, again, all perfectly functional in traditional environments. So my view on this has always been that, and maybe a little bit contrarian, and this is a big thesis of the fund that I'm building, is that model scaling is going to be the right wedge, or is going to be the wedge for agents. And what I mean by that is that, in my view, I think we're kind of ending the era of we're towards the end of an era of model scaling, which is this era where, hey, if you need a ton of money and you just need to pump that into data and compute and human labelers and even like test time compute, it's kind of all part of the same era. And my view on this is that the next era of model scaling is going to come from it's a little bit more of an unknown, but it's going to come from more experiential data. It's going to come from a bunch of people trying different techniques. I think the days of just going and hiring, like, these $100 million, I know it's just happening now, but these crazy huge AI labs, to me, is I think time will tell is going to be a bit outdated. And so in that world, I believe crowdsourced strategies, similar to open source software, right, where a bunch of people on the internet thinking about a specific use case. Again, when I say next era model scaling, I should kind of preface this. I don't necessarily mean frontier general purpose LLMs. I think, frontier labs that do this, I think company formation is still likely the best way to do this. I'm talking about for more specialized use cases. You're building a model for an agent or an app that's really good at X-ray detection or, doing your taxes or whatever. For those kind of things, I do think crowdsourced strategies will over time yield better and cheaper results than trying to go stand up a whole AI staff and paying a bunch of people, a bunch of data labelers and all that stuff. And these models will complement frontier models, but they'll kind of be the secret sauce for these agents. And crowdsourced strategies, I think, will benefit most from the fact that you can pay people to contribute or incentivize people to contribute on chain. So I think if model scaling is the wedge that brings people on chain, then over time, agents and teams will find it more natural to do payments through stablecoins, access capital markets, and I think rollups will be an opportunity for them, or like the infrastructure for them to go do that. The last thing I'll say is, I know this chat is a bit more rollup centric, but again, this comes back to the infrastructure piece. Like the infrastructure has to be great for that use case. If the rollup can be specialized for a specific use case, I think it can make sense. If it's not, and it's this general purpose thing, or it's not as performant or effective as some other L1 or some other blockchain, it's going to lose. I think humans are much more emotional about, I'm an Ethereum or a Solana or whatever ecosystem player. I love EVM. I love the ethos here. Most of these teams coming from AI or certainly agents are not going to care at all about this stuff, right? They're going to pick the best solution for them. And so the solution has to win out, not the ethos.
Oh, absolutely. We agree completely with that. So the communities that we work with hold the particular stack that they follow very close to their heart. So they can vouch for that in more ways than one, Karthik. So we're at the end of the session as of now, Karthik. So do you have any last words for our listeners?
No, I think you appreciate you having me on. I would say, again, for any listeners out here building infrastructure, just to kind of keep hammering at home, make sure you deeply, deeply understand the user, and the user in this case is probably a developer that you're building for. Understand their pain point, and make and understand and ideally identify how you can measure that pain point. That way, when you offer your solution, it can be very oriented to their pain point, and you can verifiably demonstrate that your solution makes their pain point better because it's measurable. So if you can think about it from that frame, I think you'll be better off. And it's a harder frame to think about. It's not easy, but I think that you'll be better off as a builder.
Brilliant. Okay. Thanks a lot for your words, Karthik. So we will have the recording of this session on our brand new YouTube podcast channel. If anybody who wasn't able to, money will always slim for us. So we usually have quite a few more listeners on us. So yeah, you can go and listen to this very recording on YouTube after the fact. So by saying that, I want to thank Karthik once again for graciously accepting our invitation and coming and discussing on topics of stablecoin and on-chain AI. And the answers were absolutely brilliant. And we will be posting and publishing the same transcript of this recording on our website as well. And for everything else, our listeners can visit zeeve.io, zeeve.io/rollups if you want to build rollups with us, and zeeve.io/appchains to build our app chains, and of course, cognitors.io. So thanks again, Karthik, for joining us. And we have another AMA on 24th of this month, and our CEO, Dr. Ravi, will be hosting that, and that's with Shadium, and that's what's coming next. So that's our Karthik. So thanks again.